And welcome to another episode of the Rorschach Test Podcast. I am your host, Terrell James, and today I'm doing things a little bit differently than I normally do them. Normally, I have guests. I normally interview creators, business owners, or people who just have interesting stories. And what I do is I put up these Rorschach tests and or ink blot tests, and I ask them what they see. And based off of what they tell me that they see, I link it to what it is that they do for a living and who they are as a person. However, today I'm doing things a bit differently. Um, I'm going to I am going to still put pictures up, but this particular episode is all about me. Now, here's the reason that I wanted to do this. 2 weeks ago, I was in a pretty bad accident. My car ended up flipping twice. Not only did it flip twice, it ended up on the other side of the road and was facing the opposite direction. And it was it. There were some things. Thank God I was able to just get right out of the car. No major injuries, no broken bones, no concussion or anything like that. Just a couple of contusions. I was able to just open the door, just step right out. Thank God. Thank God. But there have been, there's just been a lot that has come from this accident, and I felt that it was time for me to tell a story in a certain way. And I was trying to figure out the best way to tell the story, and it dawned on me to do it through the podcast and to use these pictures. Now, I am going to put up one Rorschach test, one actual Rorschach test. Now, if you've ever watched the show, then you know. If you haven't watched the show, then you don't know. What I do is I put up the Rorschach test, but I also put up other pictures that aren't Rorschach tests and just connect it to the person or whatever. Some of them are funny. For the most part, they're funny pictures. But um, this is not really going to be any humor this time. This is going to be a lot different. I'm more so going to focus on my story. I'm going to focus on my journey. I have my notes here so that hopefully I don't forget anything. But I just want to. I'm going to tell a story, take you on a bit of a journey. But there's a message here. There's a really really important message here that I feel like I need to get out. Somebody needs to hear, and I need this to leave my mouth and fall on somebody's ears and hopefully their heart as well. Um, like I said, I was in an accident, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect everything to the accident, but I'm going to do that at the end. I have to go back. So um, I'm going to start off by putting some pictures up and telling the story. Okay. So first, I'm going to start here, right here, the Star Democrat. The Star Democrat is a newspaper on the eastern shore of Maryland. Now, I used to write articles for the Star Democrat, and I did this last year, 2020, uh, right at probably just as COVID was really starting to get going. When I first started writing the articles, it was because so I'm a nutritionist, along with a bunch of other things that I do, personal training, boxing coach. It's a bunch of different things that I do. But for this particular article, they wanted someone to write about how to stay healthy in the midst of the pandemic and how to keep your immune system strong and how to continue to just work out and stay in shape while you were at home. So I wrote this article, and they loved the article so much that they wanted me to continue writing articles. So I did. I continued writing articles for them. And the so the articles for the most part were based around nutrition, about health. But as I was paying attention to everything that was going on in the world, it was complete pandemonium. People are panicking. People are scared to death. I realized that not only do I need to focus on the physical health, I also need to focus on mental health. So I started writing about mental health. And one of the articles that I wrote was I titled it "Connect the Dots." And in this particular article, I was talking about how nobody is where they are currently because that's just how you woke up. I was basically saying that we are who we are because of what has happened in the past. And if we connect the dots, then a lot will make sense. I've spoken to a lot of people who have dealt with a lot of mental health issues, and I'm going to get into why people have come to me so much with that in a second. But and oftentimes, as they're telling me what they're currently going through, I start asking questions about the past because there's so much about the past that explains where they currently are. As I was writing this article, and then people started reaching out to me because of the article, I started realizing some things about myself. I started realizing that it was time for me to start connecting the dots. I needed to go back and just make some things make sense. So that's what I did. I went back, started thinking. Now, what I'm going to be doing here is jumping around a lot. So I started with 2 weeks ago with the accident, and then I went to last year. Now I have to I have to I'm basically just going to be going back and forth, just back and forth. Okay, so please just bear with me and try to just stick with me for a few minutes, okay? Because there's a message here. So um so let me see. Going back to when I was a kid. Now I've been through a lot of things, a lot of things. I'm going to spare you all of the details, but I've gone through a lot of things since the age of 10. These things that I've gone through have put me in front of many psychologists and psychiatrists. They have tried to prescribe medicines. The longest I ever stayed on any medicine was 2 weeks, and that was only because I was in the Psychiatric Institute of Washington, and they were making sure that I was taking my meds. As soon as I got out of there, I stopped taking the medicine. But one particular doctor, one time, now at this time, I'm probably around 15. I believe I was about 15. I went to, me and my mother went to this doctor. It was my first time ever seeing, my first and only time seeing him. And this doctor, he did something that none of the other doctors had ever done. This doctor said, "I want to speak to your mother first before I speak to you." And he asked me to just sit in the waiting room. So I sat in the waiting room. And as I was sitting in the waiting room, I was looking at the table, and he had all of these magazines on the table. And one of the magazines was a National Geographic, and this was, I believe, 1996. And it was a National Geographic with Genghis Khan on it. I picked up that magazine, and I was just flipping through the pages, and I'm just looking at pictures, and every now and then I'll start reading a little bit. But for the most part, I was looking at pictures. The doctor comes out and he says, "Okay, I'm ready to speak to you now." And he looks at my hand and he sees the magazine and he says, "Why did you pick up that magazine?" And I said, "I was just waiting for you all to finish so that I could get back there. I was just trying to kill time." He said, "No, I mean, why did you pick up that particular magazine?" And I said, I, I don't know. I just picked it up." And he said, "No, there was a reason that you picked that up." And I said, "No, there wasn't a real reason. I just picked it up." He said, "That's Genghis Khan right there on that cover. There's a reason that you picked up that magazine with Genghis Khan on it." And I said, "No, it's not." So now at this point, I'm getting frustrated. So I get up, I go into his office. Now, again, I'm jumping around, okay? I want to fast forward. When I started doing the Rorschach Test Podcast, I had people ask me, how did you come up with the idea to just put up Rorschach tests and then ask people what it is that they see and then try to link it to what it is that they're doing, that they do for a living and who they are as a person. So now we're going to go back. I'm in this office with this doctor and he keeps hounding me about this magazine. And I'm like, I don't even know who Genghis Khan is. I have no idea. But he kept telling me there's a reason you picked up that magazine. Now, we never got to the bottom of it because the fact of the matter is there was nothing to get to the bottom of. I didn't know who Genghis Khan was. I was just grabbing a magazine. That was it. There was nothing more to it. I was killing time until he came and got me. The session, I don't really remember too much from the session other than the fact that I did not like him. I couldn't stand him. Part of my problem was just his introduction was him trying to psychoanalyze me based off of a magazine that I picked up, and I didn't appreciate that. So what I did was I pretty much shut down. I shut down in the session. I didn't receive anything. He wasn't the best therapist anyway. So when we left, I told my mother, never want to go back there. Never. Like, this guy is, he just kept pushing me about this magazine. But what I did though, after I left there, now I'm like, who is Genghis Khan? I went, now for those of you who don't know who Genghis Khan is, you can do all the research that you need to on him. But basically he was a Mongolian leader. He was a great Mongolian leader. General. But so so fast forward a few years, and I am in a classroom. I'm in a classroom setting, and the instructor pulls out this picture. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm so into the story. I'm supposed to be putting up pictures, right? This was the National Geographic right here of Genghis Khan. This is the magazine that I was holding in 1996. Now, the next picture that I have here, so this is the only Rorschach test that I'm actually going to put up. The instructor he pulls out this picture right here. And he says to the class, he says, what do you see here? He said, if you see a butterfly, then you're a happy person. But if you see an explosion, then you're an angry person. I'm going to leave it there for a second so that you all can really see this picture. And I'm going to repeat what he said. He said, if you are a happy person, you see a butterfly. If you're an angry person, you see an explosion. Now, goes around the classroom and he's asking people, what do you see? And he's trying to make this case of people being optimistic and pessimistic, and trying to really encourage optimism. I get it. I like that. The way he went about doing it, didn't really feel that so much, because what happened was he's going around, he's asking people in the class, what do you see? There's some people saying, I see an explosion. There are some people saying, I see a butterfly. When he got to me, I said, I see an exploding butterfly. Now, the class laughed. Him, not so much. He didn't find the humor in it. Honestly, I wasn't trying to be humorous, though. I was trying to make a point. The point that I was making is that life isn't so black and white. You can't just look at a picture and based off of seeing something, just say this person is an angry person or this person is a happy person. Or you can't see somebody holding a magazine with Genghis Khan on the cover and immediately begin to psychoanalyze them. Okay, granted, I was there that day because of depression, because of anxiety, because of anger issues. All right. So now I get it. You're trying to make your connections to the things that I'm going with, especially the anger. Trying to connect those things to my fascination with Genghis Khan. My fascination with Genghis Khan didn't even occur until after that. I had no idea who that man was on that magazine. So now fast forward again, back up to that classroom setting. So again, class is laughing. He doesn't find it so funny. But again, trying to make a point here. Life is not black and white. Sometimes you're happy. There are days that I wake up and I'm angry. And maybe I see an explosion that day. And then there are days that I wake up and I'm happy. And maybe I see butterflies that day. But then there are days where things are going great and then they're not so great. And then they're great again and then they're not so great. So maybe those days I see exploding butterflies. The fact of the matter is life is not black and white. There is a gray area that we all exist in. But he didn't want to see that. His thing was pessimistic or optimistic. That's it. There was nothing in between. So fast forward again. I never forgot those two things. I held on to those two things, as a matter of fact. I held on to them. How is it that you can look at pictures? Just look at pictures and just say that a person is a certain thing without even talking to them? Now, that brings me to the Rorschach Test Podcast. See, what I do here is I speak to people about the pictures. I ask them questions. I link what it is that they see to what it is that they do. I don't just psychoanalyze them and just leave it at that. I ask questions because I understand that life isn't so black and white. But psychology is really I'm sorry, I'm checking my notes here. Again, like I said earlier, I don't want to forget anything. So again, dealing with psychology of it all. Keep thinking back to that. And now I'm fascinated with both Genghis Khan and Rorschach Test. But what I'm really fascinated with at this point is psychology, because what I decided to do because of those two things was study psychology. Now, I didn't study psychology in a formal institution. I did it on my own. And I did it for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've been going through a lot of things, like I said, since I was 10 years old, dealing with so much. I mean, to the point that I had a therapist say to me one time, I am proud that you have not lost your mind yet. You are dealing with things that adults cannot deal with. And but you know, things like that, they just really made me wonder, why is it that I'm going through these things? Why is it that I think the way I think? And why is it that I react to things the way that I do? So that was the first reason that I decided that I wanted to study psychology. The other reason that I started studying it was because I knew I always had this business mind. I always knew I wanted to own my own businesses. And in order for me to do that, I needed to know how to sell to people. And in order for me to know how to sell to people, I needed to know how they thought, why they thought the way they thought. So I just wanted to be able to pick a person's brain apart. I wanted to be able to look at somebody and identify them and say, I need to do or say this in order to sell whatever it is that I have to you. I needed to learn how to build relationships with people. And I needed to learn how to build relationships with a bunch of people that I will never even come in contact with. So, which brings me to my next picture, which is this. So I've been in the music industry. First got into the music industry in about, like, I guess officially in 2000, year 2000. This was my second album that I released, called Shock Treatment. And down there it says the 4228 Wisconsin Avenue Story. 4228 Wisconsin Avenue is the address of the Psychiatric Institute of Washington. And this album right here is all about, I don't really go all the way into details about all the things that I've been through, but just where my mind goes, you know, the places, the things that I've gone through, where those places have led me mentally and physically, but for the most part mentally. There's nothing commercial about this album. There's no song on this album that can be played on the radio or played in a club. This is straight from the heart. This is straight from a twisted mind. But, people have listened to this album and have cried from certain songs. It has touched people in a way that it made me realize, okay, I'm accomplishing what I was set out to do. Because remember, again, I needed to know how to connect with millions of people that I would never even come in contact with. Now, millions of people? No, not so much. I wish. But a lot of people I was able to connect with this album, and a lot of people I never even met. There were people that were reaching out to me and they were telling me, hey, that album or this particular song, it meant so much to me because of something that I was going through. I was able to relate. And that right there meant a lot to me. But the problem for me was this particular album, there was a lot of pain. If you sit there and you listen to each and every one of these songs, you can listen to the pain. That's all that is. It's pain over beats. That's it. It's a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, a lot of confusion. Just it's it's coming from a very uncomfortable place, and in a lot of cases in a very angry place as well. But what has become a theme for me is the whole let me see, the conditioning is in the process. I'm going to come back to that in a second, to the conditioning being in the process. And that line alone right there, that is a direct connection to the accident that I'm getting to. So again, I need to check my notes. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything here. Again, dealing with psychology. That album right there was very important to me. I made that album not caring whether or not I sold one copy. I needed to get it out. That was my therapy right there. That I've had one therapist help me, which was my very first therapist. None of those other therapists ever helped. This right here, this was therapy for me. Being in the studio and being able to record these songs. I remember I recorded this whole album. I forgot, maybe in about 2 weeks, but I recorded 7 of these songs in 2 hours, which is pretty crazy. But I went in there ready and I just knocked the songs out really quickly. 7 of the songs, 2 hours, knocked them out. But I was driven. I was driven because I was I was recording from a place of pain. I was getting that pain. I was getting that anger out, that frustration, that depression, that anxiety, all of these things that have been plaguing me for years. I was able to just get all of that stuff out, right? So now let's fast forward again. And I decide I want to write a book. Now, of course, I'm going to stick with the whole psychology thing, but I want it to be self-help. Now, since I was already studying psychology, it just took me to all kinds of different books. And a few of the books that I was reading were self-help books. But I was reading self-help books from people who were, I was reading books on self-help having to do with psychology and then also with becoming successful. I wanted a book that did both, and I couldn't seem to find it. But you could make the argument that they're interchangeable, that you can find success in mental healing. So, but at that moment, that's not what I saw. So what I did was I decided that I wanted to write a book while I was in the process of becoming successful. And the reason I wanted to do that was because every book that I had read was from the perspective of somebody who had already become successful or who had already overcome whatever obstacles. And that book was hindsight for them. But it wasn't hindsight for me. None of that stuff was hindsight for me. What it is, hey baby, I'm doing my podcast right now, but it's okay. You can come on, don't worry about you making noise, but it's okay. It's okay. Love you. Okay. So but again, so that book, that those books were, of course, were all hindsight. But what I wanted to do was write a book in the process of becoming successful. That way I felt that I was giving the reader an incentive to continue on their journey. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said. The conditioning is in the process. I'm going to keep saying that the conditioning is in the process. So, for me, and one of the things that stands out the most from that, I wrote that book, I think back in, it was like 2013. As a matter of fact, I released that book November 13th, 2013. That was actually my father's birthday, but that was the year that my father passed. So, and that was the reason I decided to release the book on that particular day. As I was writing that book, I was going back and forth between talking about being successful, and then I was also dealing with psychology. Because again, like I said, I was looking for a book that did both and I couldn't find it. But what I was doing was I was outlining my steps to becoming successful. And I was outlining my steps to the mindset that you need to overcome obstacles. And one of the things that stood out the most for me was I said the fight inside of you is bigger than the obstacle in front of you. And basically, for me, what that means is, you're good at something because of your natural ability to do it, but you're great at it because there was an obstacle that you had to overcome. Let's take Michael Jordan, for instance. Michael Jordan was a great basketball player, not just because of the way he dribbled or the way he shot the ball or his defense or whatever. It wasn't just because of that. He was great because there were other great people in front of him trying to stop him from what he was doing, and he did it anyway. He was able to still be successful. So that's what makes you great, when you're able to overcome those obstacles. And that's one of the things that stood out to me. Again, it goes back to the conditioning is in the process. So I write this book, I release this book, and the response to the book is it touches me. It touches me in a way that it made me realize that I was connecting with people and relating to people. And then I started seeing me in them. And I realized the same way my album was done from a place of pain and anger and frustration and anxiety. That's where this book came from as well. The book came from the same place. I don't remember putting the picture up. Did I put the picture up? I don't know if I put the picture up or not. I can't remember. But anyway, here's the picture of the book, The Glass Ceiling versus the Front Door. This is my first book, my very, very first book. I'm actually on book number 8 right now. Again, just checking my notes and making sure that I don't miss anything. So, the conditioning being in the process. All of this stuff was the process. Now, I've had people say to me that they see me as successful. I don't see it that way. I think that I'm far from the goal. But of course, I can't, what they see as goals and what I see as goals, two different things. But what I did realize is that oftentimes people see me as successful because I've done everything that I said that I was going to do. Every single thing. I've either done it or I'm doing it. And there's proof of every single thing. But to me, just doing it does not equate to success. Doing it on a certain level, that's what I'm trying to achieve here. And I've been running into roadblocks. I've been running into all kinds of, and that's with everything. I've been involved in so many different things from the music industry. I'm an actor. I am an author. I've been in politics, in boxing. Well, on the business side of boxing now. Um, Personal training, nutrition. I'm a master herbalist. Investing, trading stocks. Like I've just everything, and every single one of these things I am still doing. Every single thing. I didn't pick up anything and drop it. I'm still doing all of this stuff now, but I just have not reached that level of success that I'm going after. Well, I have been trying to figure out what in the world is stopping me from reaching that level of success. It's frustrating because if we go back to how I started this and I'm connecting the dots, I've been through this and I've been through this and I've been through this and I've been through this. And I'm like, why is it that I keep going through things? You know why? Because the conditioning is in the process. It dawned on me. I've had a few people come to me with their issues. And I was explaining to them that, sometimes what you're going through, they're growing pains. They're growing pains because right now there's growth that needs to occur. And in order for you to grow, you have to experience certain things. You're growing in the sense of you are acquiring wisdom, and there's so much pain in wisdom. So much pain. At times, not all the times, but at times there's so much pain in wisdom. So I said it's your conditioning. It's your conditioning because when if you look at it in terms, told you I'm a personal trainer. So if you look at it in terms of training and you work out to the point that you're tired or you're weak or you feel pain, all of these things are uncomfortable, but in the long run, it's making you stronger. It's adding years to your life and quality to those years. It's the conditioning. Sometimes the conditioning is painful. But what's on the other side of that conditioning is strength and wisdom. So the conditioning is in the process. That right there is the process. So I started to get it as I'm explaining it to other people, as I'm putting it in my music, as I'm putting it in the books, as I'm thinking back over my life of, the things that I've been through and the therapists that I've been in front of, and the fact that I see that life isn't just black and white and that there are all of these different colors. As I'm thinking about all of these things, I understand that there's conditioning and all of that stuff. But the part that I was missing was the fact that it was the process. Now, let me tie everything up and bring this to the accident. So, what happened was I was driving, I was on the phone. I didn't have the phone in my hand. I was on my Bluetooth. And on the steering wheel is the hang up button. And I was trying to press the hang up button. I ended the call and I was trying to press the hang up button on the steering wheel. And on my screen where it shows that I am, where I'm on the phone, it was not hanging up. And I kept pressing this button and kept pressing the button. And I'm like, what in the world is going on with this thing? Why isn't it hanging up? And now I'm more focused on why the phone isn't hanging up rather than paying attention to the road. I looked down 3 times. That third time that I looked up, I was off the road. I don't know what I hit. I don't remember. All I know is that after a while, in about a second, the car was flipping. I remember being very, very aware of everything that was going on. That's how I know that the car flipped twice, because I remember being upside down 2 times. So, now again, remember I said I'm going to be jumping back and forth. So now I'm going to go back maybe about 5 or 6 years, maybe about 5 years, I guess. one of my best friends, my boy Bricks. I actually interviewed him a few weeks ago for the Rorschach Test Podcast, and he asked me to do a song with him. Ironically, the song is called "Road to Nowhere," and in this song, I am talking about. I can't remember the exact rhyme scheme. I don't really remember the lyrics like that, but I remember when I did my verse. I did this verse to speak directly to myself. I'm like, cool, if somebody else picks up something from this verse, then great. But this verse, I had to speak directly to myself. And um and my plan was to listen to this verse over and over and over until I got what I was saying to myself. And basically the song was about making choices that could lead down the road to nowhere. Right. Okay. So I have this part of the song where I say, all right, okay. So I have this part of the song where I say, um, and again, I don't remember the rhyme scheme. I don't remember the lyrics, but I'm saying something to the effect of paying attention to the journey, paying attention to all of the creations, all of the things that God has created, focusing on like the trees, the birds, the sun. And again, this isn't exact. This isn't verbatim. This isn't what I'm saying. It sounds a lot better when you hear the song. It's creativity and it rhymes and all this stuff. But um, and there's wordplay. But I'm talking about all of these things. The trees and the sun and just paying attention to God's creation and enjoying the journey, the process. Because I realized back then that I have been spending my life just rushing. I have been rushing through life. I'm always so focused on my destination that I never pay attention to the journey. I never pay attention to the journey. And I mean, even so much so to the point that I will arrive at the destination. And as soon as I get to the destination, I'm sitting there thinking about the next destination instead of being focused on the journey, thinking about the next destination. Just trying to figure out how to be present, trying to figure out how to just be where I am. Stop thinking about tomorrow so much. Yeah, I can plan. I can plan for tomorrow. But stop thinking about tomorrow so much that you just neglect today, that you neglect the moment. You're missing too much. You're missing too much. And that was the message that I was trying to convey. That's the message that I'm trying to tell me. Keep listening to this song until you beat it in your head that you need to be present. And the best way for me to teach you this is to make you presently listen to the song. You have no choice but to sit here and listen to the song presently. Get the message. What I realized back then, that my message: slow down, enjoy the journey, stop being so easily distracted. Now, let me get there for a second. I was rushing through life so much that the only thing that would ever grab my attention, the only thing big enough to grab my attention, was a distraction. That was it. Other than that, I was racing to my destination. Now, could be. Now, I'm talking about driving, but that's symbolic right now. I'm talking about period in life, just across the board. Everything that I did, I was rushing. I was always rushing through life. Always, for instance, my books. I would rush through my books because instead of just enjoying the process of writing, I'm so focused on just writing the end. But I'm rushing, just rushing and rushing, not enjoying the process, not enjoying the journey. And the only thing that could slow me down, distractions. That was it. So then at that point, the message became: slow down, enjoy the journey, stop being so easily distracted, fulfill the assignment. All right, cool. I'm trying to do that. Trying to figure out how to slow down. Trying to figure out how to be present. Trying to figure out how to not be so easily distracted. But was I really? No, I wasn't really. You know why? Because what I was doing was racing through that too. I wasn't slowing down. I wasn't enjoying the journey. I was still being easily distracted. And on top of that, I was trying to fulfill the assignment. But what I realized was that I couldn't fulfill the assignment until I did all those other things. See, I kept trying to rush through those other things. And I was trying to just jump straight to the end to just fulfill the assignment. So now going back to my definition of success and why I haven't reached that. It's because I've been rushing. I have been trying to hurry up and get to the destination instead of paying attention to the journey. So now let's go back to that accident that I was in and how all of this, how that accident made me realize some things about my success. Yeah, I was driving a little too fast. I wasn't going incredibly fast. I honestly wasn't. I mean, on the road that I was on, you're asking for trouble if you drive too fast. So I wasn't going too fast. Honestly, I wasn't. But I was speeding a little bit, maybe 10 miles over the limit, I guess. But I was distracted. I was distracted. I was not paying attention to the things that I told myself to pay attention to in that song. Now, had I been paying attention to God's creations, if I was just happened to see the trees or the sun or the birds, then my head would have been up the entire time. My head would have been up and I wouldn't have gone off the road. I wouldn't have ended up on the road to nowhere. That wouldn't have been my destination because I would have been focused. So I get into this accident. I'm able to get out of the car. I look at the car and I'm like, ooh, I don't know how I survived that. Really don't know how I was able to just walk away with a couple of contusions. And now I have time to reflect. And I'm sitting back one day and I'm thinking about all of the things that come with this accident. I'm like, all right, my car is totaled. I'm gonna have to go get a new car. Then the pain starts setting in. I did start feeling some pain, but it felt like, I'm used to boxing and I've done like mixed martial arts. So I'm used to sparring. It felt like I sparred somebody who was really, really good and they won. That's what it felt like. So I didn't really sweat the pain too much. But I'm like, all right, my insurance is going to go up. I'm just thinking about all of the different things that come along with this, and but then I started to deal with the mental aspect of something like that. You're faced with a situation that could have killed you, and it's you start to kind of sometimes when you're faced with death, it makes you appreciate life much more. It makes you start to look at where you are and where you have said you want to be. And it makes you say, okay, you know what? Maybe the clock is ticking. Maybe I need to do something differently. Maybe I need to start doing things the right way. And I sat. I was in my bed. I was laid back because I was dealing with a lot of things mentally. That first week after the accident, I was having a lot of bad dreams. I was jumping out of my sleep. I kept having dreams that I was trapped. I'm a lot better now. I haven't had dreams since that week. But I'm able to drive. Well, I've been driving ever since. Like the day after the accident, I was back in the car driving. I was a little skittish. It took me about a week and a half, but good now. But having to deal with all of those things, it made me just kind of just sit back and reflect and to just think. And I said to myself, if you weren't so easily distracted, you would have made it to your destination. My destination, I was trying to come home with dinner. I'd gone out and picked up dinner. I was trying to come home with dinner. That was the assignment. Fulfill the assignment. But I couldn't fulfill the assignment because I didn't slow down, because I didn't enjoy the journey, and because I was distracted. And it hit me. Terrell, that has been your life. You have been racing through life. You have not slowed down. You have not enjoyed the journey. You have not stopped being distracted. And that is the reason that you have yet to fulfill the assignment. Okay, got you. So now that I realize these things and trying to get to that point where I can do all of that, over these past couple of weeks, I have slipped back into a depression because of things. Not even going to get into everything, but slipped back into a depression. The accident had a lot to do with it, and I started reflecting, and I started going back, and I was thinking about my life, and then I started connecting dots. And once I started connecting dots, and I thought about every single thing that I brought up in this podcast, every single one of these things, along with a lot of other things, because there is a really long story with my life. And it goes back to when I was 10 years old. Actually, probably before then, probably but back when I was like 6, honestly. And but yeah, it's a long story, and I just kind of sat there and I thought about all of these things that I was going through. And then I started thinking about the conversations that I've had with some friends and how I told them about their conditioning. Now, again, on back to what I said, the conditioning is in the process. The part that I was missing, remember earlier I said the part that I was missing was the process. I understood the conditioning, but the part that I was missing was the process. The process was slowing down. The process was enjoying the journey. The process was not being distracted. And all of those things worked hand in hand with the pain that I was dealing with, and the frustration that I was dealing with, and the anger and the anxiety and the confusion and the moments of hopelessness. All of that stuff was all working together. But that right there, as painful as it all was, it was the conditioning. That was all part of the conditioning. The conditioning was in the process. So now if we go back to the example that I used with working out, if the conditioning makes you stronger, then all of those things that I went through have made me stronger. All of those things have conditioned me to be able to handle whatever it is that's in front of me. Again, back to what I said earlier, the fight inside of me is bigger than the obstacle in front of me. It has prepared me for whatever obstacle that is in front of me. It has prepared me to slay Goliath. So now I can finally fulfill the assignment because I understand. I understand now that I understand the conditioning has made me, has prepared me for it all. I understand that the process has prepared me for it all. And now I'm at a point where I can slow down because I may run off the road, may flip a car. Now I know that it's time for me to just enjoy the journey. Because if I run off the road, and I flip the car, then I miss out on all of the beauty of the journey and all the things that I can pick up and hold on to with this journey, as I'm on my way to my destination. And now also because I understand the conditioning, and now because I understand the process, I'm not so easily distracted because I know where that can lead me. It's going to lead me on the side of the road somewhere. It's going to lead me down the road to nowhere. It could lead to my death. And that was the message that was loud and clear to me. Loud and clear to me. So now I understood that. Now I understand the reason why I haven't felt that I've been successful. The reason that I haven't fulfilled the assignment yet. It's because it's time to slow down. I keep repeating that. I'm not going to keep saying that. Y'all got it by now. Okay. So um, I I hope that I'm going to go ahead and end here because I think I pretty much said everything that I needed to say. And there we go. So I think I pretty much said everything that I need to say. I got my point across. I got the message out. In the same way that I had to get it out, to get everything out on my album Shock Treatment, the 4228 Wisconsin Avenue story. The same way I had to get everything out in my first book, The Glass Ceiling versus the Front Door. I had to get it all out on my podcast as well. Um, Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. And I'm going to end this podcast the same way that I ended with everybody else, by putting up one more picture. And I normally ask everybody, tell me exactly what it is that you see. Um, there's nobody to ask, so I'm just going to tell you that this is the greatest podcast ever. And I'm sure you couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that you were able to pick up something from this. I hope that you were able to hold on to something and just, um, I hope that I at least planted seeds and made the experiences of your life water those seeds, and they grow into something that's beautiful, that's full of wisdom, and that's full of success. Till the next time, you all be easy.